I'm Les from Comfortable Shoes Studio, and this is another episode of Art Making. Today, I want to talk a little bit about why I draw from life and a little bit about the faux ink wash technique. I think I'm going to do a full episode on the ink wash technique. Um, right, so, one of the reasons that I draw from life and really enjoy drawing from life is that I feel like when I put a concentrated attention onto the world around me, it really changes my perspective on the world. It gives me greater connection with the world. I never feel better than when I am drawing the world around me. And I've always said, I'm looking for the vibe. I'm not looking for realism. I'm just trying to kind of get the feel of the world around me. And, like I said, I do wonky vehicles. I do kind of like wonky sketches of things, and nothing is absolutely realistic. And I kind of feel like that's a good metaphor for the world around me, that nothing I mean, everything is real, obviously, but there's a certain wonkiness and off-kilteredness to the world that I feel like my wonky sketches capture. This is really capturing my feeling of the world being a little off kilter. But I do feel the most connected when I am sketching from life. Like, I really feel like I understand things a little better. And I think part of that is like, when I'm drawing this car, looking much more intently and directly at like, what do these headlights look like? What do these rear lights look like? What is the window shape? What is the shape of the wheels? Is the front wheel turned or is it straight to the body of the vehicle? What do the shadows look like? What do the reflections on this glass look like? What's inside the car? Can I see inside the car? Is there a tint on the side windows? Um, what's the size and shape of things? What's the cast shadow look like at certain times of day? Um, yeah, I feel like when I'm directly observing things, I am feeling them in a completely different way. And it's very, for me, soothing. And I think there's a point when you are sketching or drawing from life, that these things, the direct observation becomes a soothing habit versus the stress of attempting realism. And this is something that I hit upon with the kids that I work with all the time. Sketching is super stressful for them because they are caught in attempting to be realistic and not trying to get their interpretation of the world. Um, I have some thoughts on that as well. And I have said, that for me, drawing realistically is boring. It's just not as interesting. And I am, even though I am getting the vibe of these vehicles, I am being somewhat realistic. But what is interesting here for me are my lines. And it's like when I'm looking at images and I'm watching videos of people draw, what is interesting to me is how they capture the lines in an image. And so here I'm drawing a salt, sand, and plow truck for the mall. It is a massive vehicle. Um, and sorry for the up and down motion of the camera. That is actually my breathing. The camera is resting. I'm wearing a chest mount. And so when I've got it sped up two times or three times, two times, um, it really becomes very apparent that the camera is moving with my breath. It also moves as I move a little bit. It's like, so yeah, like I just looked upward and moved my sketchbook. All right, so let's move into this faux ink wash technique. So the faux ink wash technique is something that I've been really enjoying. And so ink wash is where you mix up various tints of ink or strengths of ink in water. So I did a whole video on this. You can do it with any color of ink. I prefer doing it with India ink because once it dries, it is waterproof. Um, However, one of the things that I've noticed in this faux ink wash technique is when you do move the water soluble ink around, it doesn't move nearly as much once it's been moved once. So that allows you to add watercolors or additional ink over the top of it and move other layers of ink once the water has dried. So the faux ink wash technique, you do what I'm doing right here. You use a water soluble ink in one color on your page. You can also do it in black if you want. So I am sketching this in this really cool magenta ink. It's Carcos Hot Pink. It's a pure magenta. It is a great magenta color. It's also dirt cheap. It's under $3 for 30 milliliters. It's up there in terms of like Diamine for cheapness or inexpensiveness. Let's not call it cheap. Let's use a more positive word. So very inexpensive ink. Um, I don't mind using it up. I've gone through quite a bit of it lately. Um, Feeling kind of proud of the fact that I'm blowing through ink lately. So you'll also notice that I am putting a large amount of ink on the page as I'm sketching. I'm allowing myself to find my lines. I'm thickening lines. I'm adding in some shadow areas. I'm doing that in preparation for some of the next steps. So here I'm adding black lines. So with a black line, I'm kind of going back in and doing a bit of a contour line drawing over the top of my lines. Um, I use a slightly different process for this now where I don't go, you know, I don't try, I try not to be quite so exact with my initial lines. I let myself really find the lines and get a lot of that initial ink onto the page. And so I am doing some really thick, bold black lines here, and it'll make sense why I'm doing this soon because really the black ink isn't going to move at all as I am moving the pink ink. So the pink ink is still sitting there, and you could do this in a couple of different ways. You could do the pink ink drawing and then move it, let it dry, or not let it dry and use the black ink directly on top of that. And or this, in the case of like what I'm doing with this image, I am drawing the black lines first, and I'm going to come back into it with the water brush and move the pink ink. So basically, the faux ink wash technique capitalizes upon water soluble ink and allows you to move it around and get tones and shade, light and dark, pretty well. I'm pretty excited, and this allows me to just I take two pens with me and a water brush and get some really nice gradation of color on my pages, and I think it looks really fantastic. I really enjoy brown ink and pink ink for this underdrawing technique. The water soluble nature is super nice, and just it really, to me, looks fantastic. And I noticed that the rear tire there is a little bit out of perspective. That's fine. We're not doing realism here. We're just getting vibes. Um, but yeah, so here we're just, getting those drawings in. It's almost, I'm getting some dark, dark blacks, putting some hatching in and some cross hatching. So hatching is the lines that go in one direction. I am trying to use the direction of the materials themselves to kind of add weight to the page. Um, Cross hatching is where your lines overlap with one another. And I've done some videos on cross hatching and hatching, and um, maybe I'll do another one. But yeah, so really enjoying this pen as well. Okay, so here's this little water brush. This is a Faber-Castell water brush. I think the tip is a medium, and you can see I'm just going in there with water, and I am lifting that pink ink and moving it around a little bit. Um, so the areas where I put a lot of ink, I have darker pink areas. It's pretty intense. Just moving it around. and letting the color flow over the page. And the great thing about this is that I can lift it and use it in the background. So here you can see that I'm putting some of the trees behind this truck in so that it adds a little bit of um, area, weight, sets it in the, kind of puts it into a scene. Yeah, so that's that. Give this technique a shot. It's really fun. It's easy to do. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate you watching my videos, and hopefully if you try out these techniques, leave a comment, like and subscribe. Thanks, and I'll see you next time. Bye.